Hello, my name is Katie, and you are listening to Best Be Talking.
Hi, I'm Brian, and my last name is Best, and I'm talking, so best be talking. There you go. Hey, Katie,
And
welcome
here
back.
we are. It's great to be talking to you again, Brian.
Likewise, likewise. Glad we're able to do this. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is episode 2 of Best Be Talking. So we're going to keep going with the amazing tech and cybersecurity tips, and hopefully it'll be insightful and people will continue to want to listen and get information about everything to keep them and their businesses safe.
Yeah, you can see we're kind of figuring this out. If you noticed a drastic improvement in quality from episode 1 to episode 2. Yeah, we got some feedback on the first one. It's like, yeah, we can improve this.
Yeah.
One of my
And of course,
business advisors, my buddy Brad says, ready, fire, aim, right? Like
yeah.
perfection, and our mutual friend Mr. Boyne, perfection is the enemy of progress. Yeah, so we're jumping in. We just jumped in with both feet. Learned a lot between the first one and this one, and here we are. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it helped the fact that we were sort of, that we're both podcast listeners and we both have like our favorites. And so we've been able to take information and look at the comparison from the first episode to this episode and grow from that. And of course, I think we were also both our worst critics, but of course, that comes with a lot of progress and we know what we want to do with this. And I think that's going to be really exciting.
yeah, totally. So
Uh,
we got a rundown of all the stuff we've got. The format we did like from the last time. I think we're going to keep the format the same across the board. Um, so why don't we just jump right in here and give the people what they want?
Yeah, so first we're going to jump right back into a tech tip of the week. And so this is a short little segment of information that Brian is able to provide the listeners to give them insight into something that they can implement immediately with it, some sort of technical tip.
Yeah, and then well, we're going to rate it. Katie being young and idealistic, and me being the jaded old grizzled tech vet who doesn't find anything impressive anymore, very rarely. We'll rate this, rate the coolness of this tip on a scale of 1 to 10. This tip is one that we sent out in a company newsletter not that long ago. Let me pull it up and we'll share it with y'all. So use this setting to stop triggering caps lock. So this is a Mac tip where you can get rid of the caps lock key entirely. So as you see,
Oh,
if you're always screaming at people accidentally, or you're always typing your password wrong because you accidentally hit caps lock and you don't notice the little green light on your keyboard, this would help you out. So you can actually go into the system settings, into the keyboard shortcuts, and modify it so the caps lock key, even if you press it, it doesn't do anything. And there's a little screen
okay.
grab of it. How often does that happen? How often are you screaming at people in your texts
All
accidentally?
the time, but it's like good screaming. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Or it's not a, you are bad, and I'm going to make sure that you know that you're bad and know that I'm angry at you. So I'm like, but now how am I going to convey that I'm excited without using an abundance of emojis?
Yeah, obviously the work around it is you have to hold down the shift key when you type.
Yeah.
So to make the all caps as opposed to hitting the caps lock.
I think that if you're just an average user, one, but if you are an employee who's getting really tired of your boss's really aggressive emails, because of caps lock, and you can like maybe sneak into their office and do this really quickly without them noticing, 10 out of 10.
Oh, no, no, no. See, I don't like that at all because you know who's going to get that support request? The boss is going to be like, "Hey, for some reason my caps lock key isn't working," and I'm yeah, and
But they'll
all of a
say it
sudden,
so gently because it's all in lower caps.
yeah, yeah, or they'll figure out the workaround. They'll hold down the shift key. I don't know,
They'll
boss.
be like, I saw this in a newsletter somewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or it'll be, hey, I'm taking my computer to the Apple store today because the caps lock key doesn't work. And then
Yeah, like,
they erase the drive and we have to rebuild the machine. Yeah, oof. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one I'll give it a 4 out of 10, mostly because it's an interesting novelty to be able to go in and make the shift key, because it's not just the caps lock key. If you notice the screen
mhm.
grab, it's all the keys. So I can make control, option, command, I can make them kind of do whatever, which is a really unknown and kind of cool personalization thing you can do on it. But yeah, like
Yes.
uh, you could also use it as a prank, like you
Yes.
said, but don't do that.
Go look at what someone's most used word when they're emailing you is, and change every letter to spell out something else. So like instead of going and like them being like using the word like, it says something naughty.
Well, that's actually kind of an interesting segue in the same place. Let me get it pulled up here real quick, and I'll show you mine. Right
I
there
do
it
know that
is.
this is something that gamers will do.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. They'll get super customizable because the default controls. I don't blame them. I don't game that often, but a lot of times I do, and I'm like, what buttons? Like I can't handle the ASD defaults. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
give me the arrow keys because I'm an idiot. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm not doing this.
like myself.
Um, yeah. So, but no, under keyboard shortcuts, it's funny you said the word. Here's the same thing we were looking at. This is live. They were coming in here to modify our keys, and we were saying,
Hmm.
caps lock could actually be set to no action, whatever. But under text replacements, I do this all the time. So, and we are
Oh,
going to have to kind of edit this down. Like I want to put in my home address, star home,
yeah.
boop, fills in the whole address with the zip code and the whole nine. I'll be online on social media talking about, and I'm always putting in hashtag Chiefs Kingdom, hashtag NFL. And so now it's just like, boop, there's that. Sometimes I can't remember
Yeah.
the emojis. So here's like star rib, and it does the little meat rib emoji. And I love the little shrug guy, but I don't know how to type this. Star Shrug gets a little shrug guy for me. And sometimes I'll do it with like URLs and that sort of thing just to make it really easy. So
That is super smart. Yeah.
yes, so you
So
could
if it's
totally,
if it's this function, like that's at least like a 7 out of 10 in my mind. If you're utilizing it this way, but yeah,
yeah.
just getting rid of the caps locks. I'm like,
But that goes with what you
I
were
would,
saying
yeah.
of they're always typing something nasty. You could just make it so that
Yeah.
okay, the thing they're typing is over here, and then you replace it with whatever you want them to actually type instead, and
Yeah.
it will automatically replace it. Now they if they're quick, they'll see it and they'll be like, "Hey, I didn't type that." Delete, delete, delete. They'll type the original thing. It'll replace again. It'll autocorrect.
Yes.
So it functions a lot like autocorrect. So somebody will conceivably see it and intercept it.
It kind
So
of reminds me of because you can do something similar on iPhone where you can like a certain word you can change it to where it'll autocorrect to something different. And I've seen kids do that with their parents' phone. So that way whenever the parent goes and types something that they know they'll type out eventually, it'll autocorrect to like you're my favorite child or something like that. So that
oh,
way
that's
then they
awesome.
could screenshot it. And of course the parents are sending it so quick that they don't even notice.
And I'm pretty sure it's the same method. What I just showed you here was obviously on a Mac, but all that syncs up with iCloud. So those same
Yes.
shortcuts apply on my phone as well. So you do it on the phone, it'll show up on your Mac and vice versa.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
kind of a cool
that's a
thing.
super handy tip. Then
There you
yeah, I
go.
like that one.
So we evolved the tip that we published into something that's kind of awesome. Well, we'll bring another tip next time and we'll see how we rank. So
Yeah. See if it's going to be something that I sit there and scrutinize again and be like, I like my caps lock. What do you mean?
I got to apologize. There's a source I go and get a lot of these tips from, and I'm like, I'm gonna see him in May, and I'm gonna be like, hey, so don't get mad at me, but we're ranking these tips, and so far a lot of them haven't come up very high.
Yes. I'm telling it to like a Gen Z girl, and she's really, really critical.
Yeah, like I just
She's
don't want
kind
him to
of
be mad at
mean.
me. I don't want him to be
No.
mad at me for this. I am paying for these tips.
Yes, yeah. You know what? But I think that just means that it'll be good discourse and good discussion around the tips, which I don't think anyone will be upset about.
Exactly. There you go. All right, moving on.
Yeah, so now that we kind of talked about our tech tip of the week, we can move on to the main topic, which I'm super excited because Brian, you bring a wealth of information about any sort of topic that we talk about. And so I'm excited to see what you bring to the table for listeners today.
Very kind of you to say that.
Just get paid. I'm just kidding. Just
What's
kidding.
that?
Get paid too. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
So now, as we wrap up the tech tip, we want to be able to head into our main discussion of the podcast. And so I have a quick question for Brian. So why would I hire an MSP if I don't have that many problems with my computer or with my network or software?
I get this one a lot when I'm talking to prospects. And not it's interesting when you look at marketing, you're looking at inbound, outbound, right? So this is more of the type of prospect I meet when I'm reaching out myself and doing kind of outbound, almost cold marketing. Inbound, when somebody's coming to me, they usually know why they want to hire an MSP. They kind of get the value of it. And the main difference between a business like mine that's roughly uh, MSP, managed services provider, is kind of our industry term for it. But there's a major difference. If your computer is broken, right,
Mhm.
and you call somebody who's not an MSP but is a technology person for hire. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. Like I've got a couple of really good friends here in town that's how they make their living. They do it with more of a time and materials type relationship, but you call them. They're like a firefighter. You call them when you need them. They come in, they fix the
Yeah.
machine. And the equation is really simple. Your computer's broken, you call them, they show up, they spend 3 hours fixing the machine. They give you an invoice for 3 hours of time at their hourly rate. You pay it, your computer's working. So the value equation is really, really easy. So if you're coming at a managed services concept like mine from that viewpoint, we look stupid, right? I mean, because it's like, I just don't have that many problems. My computer doesn't break that often, right?
Yeah.
And there would be, many, many times where you're not going to use us for like months. Your computers these days, they're very they've they've gotten to a point where they just don't break that often. Now they're plastic and metal and human generated code. They are going to break. They're not going to be flawless. They're not self-healing at this
Yes.
point.
Mm.
Computers don't heal, but there are a number of things that developers of computers, Apple, Microsoft, Google, third-party developers, Adobe, some of the big ones, even some of the small indie dev shops have figured out ways to make their code correct,
Yeah.
and even kind of detect errors and go back and fix the errors. Most of the time when a computer has a problem, it's because of some error that they weren't able to anticipate when they were coding or building the product.
Yeah. And even
Um,
then, like it's just changing so quickly. So, with all of that, why would I hire you when I can handle just those data, like those small things that break every so often? If I can handle them myself, what would a managed service provider do that I couldn't handle?
so like what are the little things you're doing all the time? Like you said, why would I hire you if I can handle these things? Like what are the things you're doing? What do you have to do on your own with a computer that you could see hiring an IT person for? That's not part of your day-to-day job.
Yeah, well, I mean, I use a lot of software in what I'm
Sure.
doing. So that's kind of where a lot of what I do takes place is in the different softwares that I use throughout the day for, editing content, videos,
Right.
everything like that.
So you're not so obviously, you're a small business. You're not deploying 10, 20, 30, 100, 200 devices out there,
No.
right? So yeah, you're dealing with a lot of software. Software comes up, you're in the middle of using it, and it pops up and says, "Hey, I have an update available." What do you do?
Press update.
Press the update button, right? But you're in the middle of working. You're
Yes.
you're kind of in the zone of, okay, hey, I'm getting this thing done, and I'm in the middle of doing it, and here comes software update, right? So you've
And
just kind
now
of
you're
been conditioned.
stuck.
So yeah, so why do you do it? Why do you click update?
Because it's either that or I ignore it for the next 52 times it pops up. So I might as well just get it out of the way now.
Might as well get it out of the way. Okay. So, updating is good. Updating is important. It's you've they're going to fix bugs in the software to make it work better. They're going to plug security backdoors that an attacker or cyber criminal might take advantage of to get into your system. All right. So these are important things to do it. But why do you got to do it right then and there when they say to do it? Right?
I honestly don't know.
And like you said, you're just, if you hit cancel, okay, fine, I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to put it off, and it's just not going to get done. That's kind of the two things that happen with this. And I'm just using this as a microcosm for the greater picture. But, okay, so either you do it right then and there and you deal with the interruption, and interruptions, studies have shown productivity. Lots of people study productivity. And basically the gist of it is, okay, sure, it might take 30 seconds to click that button and let it do its thing and do the update and type in your admin password, but it took you out of the flow, out of the state, the concentration state that you're in, and now you got to get back into
Yes.
that. And studies have shown that takes like 20 minutes to really, an
Yeah.
interruption, any interruption, not just a software update, but like a phone call, a text, a notification comes up, 20 minutes to kind of get you back into that same flow state where you're really locked in and you're working whatever thing you're trying to solve. Okay. So if you take that evidence, and like I said, the other thing is, before I move on, the other thing is you just don't do it. You're like, no, I'm
Yeah.
busy.
And
Go the hell
that's
away.
where I default to, in all honesty.
No, and that's fine. The problem is it just never gets done, and so you might be missing out on bug fixes. You might be missing out on new features. Probably the most important in my mind is, okay, hey, now there's a back door to your system that you have no clue is there, but has already been fixed and closed. It's just wide open. So an attacker might see,
Mm,
oh, look, she's still running an old version of XYZ, and whoop,
yeah.
I know how to leverage that to get access to her machine.
Yeah. I don't
So
even think about any of that.
yeah, who does, right? But it definitely happens. And I can point you to one. And a good example I use in a lot of my presentations is a few years back, Sennheiser headphones had a deal where they had a little driver you install on your computer to enable functionality of these headphones, but they wrote the installer for the driver incorrectly, and it opened up a backdoor to people's computers.
Oh
And they
no.
found it and they fixed it relatively quickly. But if you just installed those headphones and never thought about updating them ever again, yep, there's a big back door just sitting on your machine.
Because who thinks about updating headphones?
Right, exactly. So think about that for a second. How many updates do you have any idea how many times you get your software wants to update, all your different pieces of software want to update?
Oh, goodness. I feel like it depends on the software because there's like some that are like, oh, new update like once a week, but then there are
Yeah.
some where it's like maybe once a quarter or something along that. So I think it very much depends on the software. The biggest one that automatically comes to my mind is whenever your phone is telling you that it needs to update overnight. So you have to plug it in or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a ton. So we obviously see a lot of computers in our business, and
Mhm.
one of the many things we do as an MSP is we take care of all these updates.
Mhm.
And we validate, one of the things we do that you might not necessarily do is we validate them. Because sometimes you get a bad patch, you get a program. This just happened like last week with Microsoft Edge.
Oh,
Microsoft put out a version of Edge that was broken. This was March 1st. Microsoft put out an update to their Edge web browser, and they had to pull it because when people would just do it, Edge says there's an update available. Okay, click, punch in your
yeah.
password. It's up to date. Yay. Oh no, why am I getting out of memory errors now all the time whenever I'm web browsing?
Oh no.
And so, they had to pull it. And it didn't take them long. Maybe a couple days later, they put out a new version that fixes that out of memory issue. But in the meantime, If you have conditioned yourself to just do the updates as soon as they come up, you're going to get a bad patch. You're going to get a
Yeah.
bad one. It happens at least a couple times a year, maybe more, depending on the titles that you deal with. We see it all the time. And so one of the things we do is we install the patches. We do a buffer time. We do about a week-long
Mm.
buffer time between the time that Microsoft or whomever puts out the patch and we start deploying it to client computers. That way, if something like that edge thing happens, none of our clients got that edge problem because we
Yeah.
didn't release that version in that week's time, that week buffer time. They identified the out of memory issue, they pulled the update, they came out with a new update. We let that one sit for a week and then we deployed that one out. So nobody ever saw that bad one because of that buffer time. But
Yeah.
here's
So that kind of, oh, sorry, go on.
no, go ahead, please.
You go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna talk because the people that are in my circle, we all work off of Macs, which I know that's the primary or one of the like big brands that you work with. You work with other computer brands as well, but best Macs, you work with
We're
quite a few
definitely an
Macs.
Apple first house, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yes. And I know that with them, whenever there's like an Apple update, so, Ventura, any of the very like numerous other location-based names that Apple comes out with,
The California
um,
locations, yeah.
yeah, they wait to update it because they also want to do something similar, or like one of them will update it and then everyone else will after they make sure that there are no bugs or anything like that. So you guys kind of have a system that you guys do that automatically, waiting for the first update to happen and then seeing how that goes to roll it out, right?
Yeah, so you're actually talking about major upgrades. So like in Windows parlance, that'd be going from like Windows 10 to Windows 11 when you're jumping from
Okay.
Mac OS Ventura 13 to Mac OS Sonoma 14. That's a pretty major jump. So that's not a week-long buffer for us. That's actually more of a 90-day buffer for us.
Okay.
Yeah, we hold those up. So with macOS Sonoma, it came out in I think it was October, and we started. We'll roll it out on test machines. Like I put it on my machine about a couple weeks in, just to make sure there wasn't like something glaringly wrong with it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
But I put it on mine. My employees put it on theirs, and we had kind of a meeting and talked about it. And obviously new computers that Apple sells. So if anybody picked up a new computer in like November, it had Sonoma on it. In some cases, we can't even downgrade that. So they're
Okay.
going to run with the new system. We had one client that had a piece of software that wasn't compatible with Sonoma. So we had to kind of hold them back. But for everybody else, at some point in like late December, we were like, nah, we're good to go. We're good to go with Sonoma. And we started actively
Okay.
rolling it out all over the place. So, the buffer times are good, especially, with minor updates though, the whole little here's some bug fixes. That's like 7 days, major upgrades. But probably the most important thing on this is if it interrupts your work. So we looked at we did a little study in house and we looked
Hmm.
at a company that had about 50 people, and all 50 people when we met them were doing their own patching. Like if an update came up, they stopped what the hell they were doing, they hit the button, it did its thing, and it took them 20 minutes to get back into
Yeah.
flow, right?
Okay.
And we said, all right, so if the average interrupt is about 20 minutes, and let's say their average payroll, the average salary of a United States worker is about 50K a year. So let's say
Yes.
$60,000 a year when you factor in things like taxes and benefits and stuff like that, right? So
Hmm.
that is $28 an hour. Round up,
Okay.
let's say 20 minutes, let's just round it up. And let's say that 20 minutes is $10 in payroll. You
You
still with
lost.
me here? So
Yeah,
that
I'm
so
doing math in
every
my head, and it's not my strong suit.
yeah, no, I have it written down. It's no, not my strong
Cheater.
suit either. Yeah, I know, I'm totally cheating. But yeah, so let's say, again, every one of those 20-minute interrupts is $10 a payroll. All right. We
Yes.
saw 82 updates across all the titles we manage in the course of a month. So because we
Okay.
manage all these titles, all these patches that we have to roll out for clients, we saw 82 of them a
Yes.
month. But let's just say there's only 10. There's 10 patches that have to happen on all 50 computers every month. right? So per person, that's $100 a month. If you factor
Yeah.
20 minutes is $10, and there's 10 patches, it's $100 per user per month. And if you've
And now
got,
50 employees.
yeah, 50 employees, $60,000 a year on patch. That's
Oh
what you're
my
spending if they're
gosh.
doing it themselves. So when somebody says to me, "Well, I just don't have that many problems," okay, you're right. You're half right. I mean, there's problems that are happening that you don't know about. Like your
Yeah.
systems are failing. There's logging that's telling you stuff is going wrong and you're not reading it. The bad guys are trying to get into your computers and you don't know that's happening. So there's a lot of things, like a lot of problems you don't know about. But the problems you do know about, yeah, okay, you restart it, takes care of it. But all these little things like these patches. All right, we're going to take that off your employee's plates. We're going to tell them, hey, do the second part, ignore it, just ignore it.
Yeah.
But it's still going to get done because we're going to do it, right? And we're going to save a
And
company
yeah.
of 50 people $60K a year. Their payroll time isn't going to be spent on those interruptions and having to do that themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even if it's like first time out the gate a good patch. Like that's not even including like say an employee does it themselves immediately that
Hmm.
turns out it's a bad patch, their software isn't working or flowing the way that it's supposed to be. It's not for, because you said on average it takes a week for them to kind of fix that bug within the system or like an upgrade. So
Yeah.
there could be even more time lost if they
Oh,
don't
totally.
allow an MSP to handle it.
Yeah, totally. And even think about that from from a we don't have that many problems. Like go back to the Edge example that I gave. Okay, so everybody's installing their own patches because we got to be secure and we got to keep things up to date and everybody's conditioned to do it. All right, ignoring the fact that all right, you wasted 20 minutes for each of those employees to install that Edge update. Now Edge is throwing out of memory errors and I'm like, "Oh gosh, I can't." Now there's an obvious joke there. Who the heck uses Edge? All right,
Yeah.
that's
People already have memory problems.
bad example. Let's say it's Outlook
Yeah.
and not Edge. All right, that becomes a much different animal for a lot of people. And yeah, Outlook has
Oh, yeah.
had at least three bad patches in the last 5 years or so. Ask me how I know. And yeah, it's like I can't get my email today, and all of a sudden 20 minutes of interruption and just productivity of lack of focus all of a sudden becomes an hour or two of downtime of I can't get my email. That becomes a much different animal that we would be preventing as part of our services. And again, you're not paying any extra for that. That's just part of our monthly fee, which, right there, just that alone might be paying everything we do for a company. It's the ROI might be just on this automation of patch management, making your users so that they don't do it.
Yeah, and that's not even including all the multitude of other services and things that you and your team handle for computers and software.
Exactly.
Yeah, when you really break it down into that $60,000 a year, it really does make it like, oh, okay, I would be silly not to be doing this.
Right. So there you go. Yeah, but
There
it's
is.
hard math. It's easier when it's time and materials. Broken computer, 3 hours later, write my check, fixed computer. This is a little bit harder. It's a little more hidden cost to try to comprehend, but it's real. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely happening.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things where you don't think about it until you're seeing all that money kind of go out the door and you're like, oh wait, hang on. We need to change something and also make our systems more secure somehow. We need to hire someone like Bestmax.
Exactly. I like that. Thank you for the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Knocked it out of the park.
Kind of moving on and
Mhm.
going from something that isn't going to be math heavy because some of us don't have it
Ah,
written down in front of us. I want to kind of bring it around into the other area that you really have, your handle on and that you take care of, which is cybersecurity. And so you have
be
best,
safe.
Best be safe. I was like, I know it. I know it. I saw it just earlier.
I'm leveraging this best be thing, right? It's like best be talking, but it all kind of started. Somebody said to me like when I was a kid, I was leaving somewhere, and he goes, "Oh, best be going," and I'm like, "Yes, I am. I'm going," and so I have just leveraged the heck out of that for
I love
a
it.
lot of different things.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you have Best Be Safe,
hmm
which you have a cute little bee logo for that.
yeah.
And
Shout out to Sarah
I,
Boyne. We love the little bee.
yes. And as someone who I think you understand this mindset, has the serial entrepreneurial mindset, I have recently gotten into what will someday be my next entrepreneurial pursuit, which is beekeeping.
No
And so
way.
I have a whole bunch of bee facts and security for their hive that I would like to share with you and
Oh,
the
and now for
listeners.
something completely different. All right,
Now it's
let's
time
do
for something
this.
completely different. So, beehives are an incredible microsystem. They just, right out the box, were created with just this insane amount of capability, and they function perfectly within their system. With every hive, every bod, bee has a job. I had to, it was right there, had to make it. The queen obviously is there to leave the hive and continue to reproduce. The drone's main job is to mate with said queen, and the workers are where it really gets interesting. So each worker bee has a job that they act, and it actually changes depending on what stage of life that they're in. So the first half of their life, which it's usually they have a 5 to 7 week lifespan, they will work inside the house. So making sure that the baby bees are taken care of, giving them some royal jelly, which is what that's called for some reason. And it's this really weird, like gummy stuff that they feed the baby bees. Your face
I
looks
honestly never
terrified.
thought of what baby bees would eat. Royal jelly?
Oh, yes, it's called royal jelly, and it's like a mix of honey and propolis, and that's what they give
What
them.
is propolis?
So they, in order to secure their hive, they will create sort of this sticky residue that they will seal up any and every gap with. So, they're patching their back doors of their system to make sure nobody can get in. And they
Like,
just put that stuff everywhere.
oh, like the cyber bears. Yeah, okay,
Yes.
yeah, I got you.
So they put
Uh,
that everywhere and they'll feed it to the babies to make sure that the
wait,
babies.
wait. So that's like me taking caulk and feeding it to my kids. Here, kids, eat your caulk. Take
That's what you
caulk
don't
bread.
do? Yeah. That's like Olivia's favorite dessert. I'll just put that on, like, instead of
Just
icing on a cake, just caulk
no.
on top. Happy birthday to you.
That's messed up.
But yeah, so they'll do
Um,
that, and actually, like, bee pollen is really good for people as well, and actually helps like fight allergies. And so bees are just incredible. It's amazing.
they really are. It's awesome. I know exactly what you mean. I was my first job as an Apple tech. I was working for an authorized service provider, and there was about an hour and a half away from their shop, there was a Russian Orthodox church. And these
Oh,
guys were like right out of textbook, like the black robes, the long beards,
whoa.
and this it was you came over a hill and it looked like the Kremlin was just sitting there, and that was their church. It was
Okay.
crazy. And they had a publishing department there. I don't remember what year this was, but they had a whole bunch of classic Macs, and that's what I was there to fix.
Hmm.
I had gone out about 2 or 3 times and got to know, I don't know if priest is the right word, or what the official title was, but he was, he's one of the guys with the long beards.
Yeah.
And I had an allergy attack one day when I was out there. I have seasonal allergies, and then I was just not feeling it that day. It was
Mm.
bad, itchy eyes, runny nose, the whole nine. And he's like, "Oh, I have just the thing for you. Hang on." He comes out, he's got raw beehive.
Yeah, like the honeycomb.
Yeah, honeycomb, and
Yeah.
and not like he's like, here's some honey. I'm like, that'll look like honey. I know what honey looks like. It's a little bear, and you pour it out, and it comes out, and it's clear. That is not the little bear. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
But like within an hour, I felt better. It was
Yes.
nuts. And I
Yeah.
haven't
So
been able to duplicate it since. He had something special there because I've tried to find that stuff and it didn't work the next time
well,
I did it.
yeah, like that's what a lot of people recommend is for allergies, like start eating raw local honey and it will help with like your seasonal allergies. The same with bee pollen. And it's because the bees are already going around to like the different plants that are in your native area and they are taking that and then turning that into honey and then you're there ingesting it, so it's kind of like micro dosing, but like it kind of is like you're giving yourself like little bits of like the honey to kind of get yourself used to those seasonal allergens, and you can use it to make tinctures, things of that nature. Honey is incredible, but to go with like the whole bee part, I mean the like honey little honey bear part, it turns out that a lot of the honey that you see in a store is not made of real honey. They have additives, they have additional
Uh,
sugar, and you can tell because if I were to go outside to like a beehive, collect the honey, take it inside, the honey jar that I have from a beehive by me is going to look different than a honey jar that is by you, even though we're in the same sort of like geographical area, but the plants are going to be different. And so you can actually tell a difference in the honey based off of the color. If you go into a supermarket, they are all the same color, and
yeah,
that
they're all the
doesn't
same
happen
color.
naturally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how you can kind of tell. But what I think is really interesting about bees is how they protect the hive. And this is kind of where I thought I liked the cybersecurity part was because they have so many different ways to protect their hive. And I mean, they obviously have different attackers that are coming in. And so they have, of course, the stingers, which are the thing that everyone absolutely hates. They're barbed. Like, why? You're tiny. Why do you have a barbed weapon on your behind? That's terrifying, but it is. And then they'll give you some little bit of, their poison. But what I also think is really cool is even if another bee comes into the beehive to steal their honey, they can tell that it is a different bee based off of the pheromone that they have. So they will surround that bee and then they will overheat it.
No way.
Yeah, they flap their little tiny wings, they get a buzz, and I've had like a bee on my hand before as it's doing this fluttering, and they get hot. If you were to take a heat gun and like take like a, picture of a hive, it will be red hot because they just generate so much heat. And so they will take the enemy, surround it and overheat it to the point that it suffocates, and then they'll just take it out and throw it outside the hive and be like, "Okay, you're done." Because they like their space to be clean.
Wait, so this poor bee is just like, oh hey guys, sorry, I'm lost. I'm in the wrong hive. My bad. Wait, no, guys, what the hell?
Yeah, they're brutal. They'll like the drones. The drones are not allowed because the drones are the male bees. They are not allowed to live into the winter. The worker bees will do that same overheating effect on all of the male bees and then just throw out their bodies.
What? Oh my God, I have so many questions. Like,
So this
why?
is what Best Max does with your cybersecurity.
Yeah, we yeah, no, I actually another shout out to Sarah for coming up with that B logo. Like,
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, wow.
it's
We're gonna
perfect.
we're gonna overheat the attacker and throw his body out of the computer. It's gonna be great. Oh
Yeah,
my
so it's good branding. Surprise! It's like surprise.
Wow, that's something. Oh my goodness, that's
There
hilarious.
you
Okay,
go.
that was completely different. I'm gonna go feed my kids some caulk.
Yeah. We talked about bees and cough on today's, which that doesn't
Yeah, that's right.
sound
Aren't you
good.
glad you joined us?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the hack of the week actually comes from right in our own backyard this week. Now,
Oh
normally
no.
I kind of want these to, I want to showcase kind of where these things start. This one's a little different because we haven't really found out where this thing starts yet. But this one was right here in our backyard, Jackson County, Missouri, Kansas City.
Oh no.
Got a ransomware attack. And interestingly enough, it happened super close to the election on April 2nd.
That's sketchy.
So that, yeah, exactly. There was a lot of conspiracy theory out there that it was like, it's the Chiefs and the Royals trying to make the vote happen so we get our new stadium.
Oh my
Or the reverse,
goodness.
like F those billionaires, they're not getting a new stadium. But really, I mean we don't really know how it happened. But I had to throw it in here because obviously it's close to home. It's in our backyard. We're both in the greater Kansas City metro. Um,
Yes.
and so it was wild because the I really love the statement from the county on it. Like, we notified law enforcement, we enlisted the expertise of security contractors to assist and we don't have any information suggesting that data was compromised. Like, well, they were in your system and it was
Yeah, what were they just
ransomware.
doing?
Like, well, I mean, ransomware typically is, the criminals could do whatever the hell they want, right? So they could get
Mhm.
in and they could grab your data and put it out on the dark web for everybody to read to embarrass you. They could encrypt it all and make you pay them to get it decrypted. They could lock you out. There's a number of different things they can do. A lot. Sometimes they just sit there and they snoop. Like, they'll sit in your accounts and watch how you do business and then pretend to be you and do it
Oh,
with an astounding amount of accuracy because they've been watching you for 3 months
yeah.
and seeing how
I
you
would be
do
so
things.
worried of anyone watching it. I Google some random stuff. So that makes me
Really?
so nervous. Yeah,
You're
I was,
you're there's
yeah.
about how bees kill other bees.
Yeah, it was about like how bees kill other bees. Earlier today, it was Victorian, like during the Victorian period, like a beauty routines. So I think a lot
Oh,
of mercury and lead poisoning, those
oh,
sort of
nice.
things.
Yeah, so if your significant other comes up dead and of lead poisoning, we got your search
He'll look
history.
so pretty though, because I'll do his makeup. It's gonna be gorgeous. It's just he will be like the Mad Hatter because of the mercury poisoning.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, just little
So
things.
so anyway, they were, so it's very possible they were only interested in getting money out of the county, which, have you seen our budget? Ching. They obviously got hired somebody to come in and help us. But I think the real interesting thing is from Frank White, the county executive. Hey, the investments we made in our cybersecurity infrastructure have significantly reduced our vulnerability to such attacks and fortified our ability to respond effectively. I hate to poo-poo my brothers and sisters in information technology and cybersecurity. I'm
Hmm.
sure they did the best they could with this, and having worked in government institutions and dealt with the politics and the red tape and all the things that go along with that, I'm betting that the IT pros at Jackson County wanted to do more for cybersecurity to prevent this news story from ever happening, but just
Yes.
got stonewalled by either process or budget or an idiot middle manager or a series of idiot middle managers who just told them they couldn't do it, and now they're down. And if you want to get married, you can't get your marriage license. If you want to look up an inmate, you can't do
Oh,
that. If you want to pay some taxes on your property, tough, you can't do that either. And we're going to close down these offices and cause a bunch of downtime. And ultimately, they couldn't stop it. So I guess the lesson from Jackson County in this week's hack of the week is, if your IT group is saying, hey, we need to do something to keep the company safe, maybe you ought to do it.
yeah. Even
Yeah.
if it's going to be, a little bit more, especially if you are a like government office. Like I think your primary objective needs to be safety and security, not only for, your employees or anything like that, but also any of these citizens within your district. That way you're making sure that they're taken care of.
You would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, in an ideal
I
world,
I
sure.
would. I would
You
like
would.
that.
I would like that too, but no, I don't know any. But yeah, there's your hack of the week.
That's
Hell,
a good
it
one.
was
I
only
did
the
not know.
it was only the second worst defeat that Jackson County had this month. They lost the stadium vote by like 20 points. It was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, I was telling Josh about that, and he thought it was just like having to do with the Royals, and I was like, oh no, baby, there's the reason why the Chiefs were on those like billboards and signs that you saw everywhere. And I was explaining a little bit to that about that to him, and he's like, why is everyone so dumb?
They mangled. I mean, they deserve to lose. I don't want to get political about it. I didn't get to vote on it because I live north of the river. So
Hmm.
I'm not actually in Jackson County. I'm in Kansas City proper, but I'm not in Jackson County.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to vote on it. And as a Chiefs fan, I was kind of, diehard Chiefs fan. I was split. I was kind of like, I saw the stadium improvements they were going to make to Arrowhead, and I was kind of like, all right, that's kind of cool. Not nearly as cool as maybe the ones they did in 2010. I mean, didn't
Hmm.
have a rolling roof. I did enjoy freezing my butt off in the playoffs in January multiple times, but maybe some climate control would be kind of cool. And they built
Yeah.
in some climate control in the upper concourses, which was kind of neat. I'm like, all right, $800 million neat. And it just
Yeah.
kind of feels like they mailed it in on the Chiefs side. The Royal side was like, surprise, here's a stadium, not in any of the places we were thinking about doing it, but right here in the crossroads where we're going to disrupt a whole lot of
Yeah.
small businesses. And it was like, it came out of left field like a month before the vote. And it was just like,
Yes.
guys, what are you thinking? Like this wasn't even one of the plans. And now you're going to disrupt
Yeah.
all
Like
these businesses?
I feel like even like the 2 weeks up until the vote, they were still talking about places that they could possibly do. Because like I mean, they were talking about doing it up in the Northland where like you live. And I know that
Mhm.
like that had Josh worried because he has like his studio space like that's up in the Northland. And then
Yeah. Oh
they were
yeah. Yeah.
talking about doing it like further out or like we're on the Kansas side. And then like 2 weeks like up until the vote, someone proposed or like kind of there was like a whispering of, well, why don't they take down like the Independence Mall because that's pretty
Oh
much
wow.
bankrupt and put it there.
I hadn't heard
And I
that
was like,
one.
that actually like out of any of the places, like I live in Independence, I was like, that makes the most sense. Like that mall, it's kind of a bare bones sort of thing. It's not
Oh,
doing a
someday
whole
I'll tell
lot.
you about my story of the Independence Center.
Oh, I'm excited to hear.
Yeah, no, it's not a fun story. But no, yeah, I heard East Cross. I mean, they had these locations, and it's just like when they announced where they wanted to put it, it was like, where'd this come from? Y'all didn't talk about this, and then they were so short on details. It was just kind of like, oh, just trust us. So what are you going to do about this group? Oh, we'll take care of them. How? No, no, no
Trust
details.
us.
Just trust
Come
us.
on.
We're
What has a
billionaires. Just
major
trust
corporation
us.
ever screwed you
Yeah.
over?
It's like, okay, you guys go back to the drawing board and come up with a better plan. I mean, even if it's the same
Yeah.
location, come up with a better plan. At least it wasn't a new tax. I mean, it was just the same one that voters approved in 2006. But so not horrible, but like come up with a better plan. There was just so much ambiguity and so much trust us in this that
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't have to go to the booth and cast a vote on that because I would have been like really conflicted. Um,
Yeah. I'm just really hoping that that doesn't mean that like either team will leave because I just know that that's just such a huge part of Kansas City's
yeah,
culture and
no.
also like economics thing.
Did you hear about the mayor of Dallas? The mayor of
Uh-uh.
Dallas. Well, the Chiefs started in Dallas as the Dallas Texans in 1960, and then 3 years later
Yeah.
moved to Kansas City and became the Chiefs. Well, the mayor of Dallas is like, Dallas Texans, come on home. We got a stadium for you. And like the Cowboys don't even play in Dallas anymore. They play in Arlington in one of the suburbs. It'd be like the Chiefs moving to Olathe,
Yeah.
which might actually happen. If they're going to move, that's probably where they're going. They're going to like KCK out of the Legends. They're going to
Yeah.
like Olathe or something like that. That's where they'll go. I mean, it'll suck to lose Arrowhead, but that's that's probably where they would go. But the mayor of Dallas is like, "Come on home, Dallas Texans." I'm like,
He
"Dude,
was
no,
waiting.
go f yourself, dude. Get out of here. That's you had your shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be about the closest you'd get to a Super Bowl winning team, you jerk. Good
Yeah.
luck with
It's like,
that."
dude, you already got one. Leave us
And
alone.
every Cowboys fan who's listening to this, including maybe one of my clients, is a diehard, hi Fred, a diehard Cowboys fan, just got really mad at me.
He's like,
Uh,
leave our Cowboys out of this.
how about them boys? All right, moving right along. Next segment, please.
Yeah. So, Brian, we keep talking a lot about Best Max and the services that you provide. And so, just to give people a little bit of information about what to expect whenever they become a customer with Best Max, what is the start of the journey with your company looks like?
Yeah, so Katie, we're gonna get you on boarded. You're a Mac user, and so hey,
Hmm.
free service. Woo! All right, so let's go ahead and do this. So we start at the beginning, and what we talked a little bit early in the episode about the value that comes not when you just don't have that many problems. Where are we going to provide value? We got to kind of figure that out. So it's incumbent on me to make somebody feel like every month when that they write that check that it was a worthwhile month. It was they're getting return for that check, that it was totally worth doing, and they'd be happy to do it. I mean, if you look at your bills and you pull up all your expenses, are there any you simply can't live without?
I try my best not to.
Yeah, well, yeah. I guarantee there's something where you're like, these guys could charge me triple. I wouldn't like it, but I would absolutely pay it because I have to.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and we want to kind of have that like hostage away, but because it's like, oh yeah, the value there, I can't live without this.
Hmm.
So it kind of starts with what we call the B plan. The B plan can be done. Sometimes I'll do it as the very first thing or one of the very first things we do with a new client we sign, but more often than that, I actually do this before we even sign a client. So let me actually kind of
Okay.
show you what it looks like. So this is kind of what it looks like. We actually changed tools. We had a tool we used to use to do this, and we changed tools, so it looks a little bit different now. But it's the same exact concept. And the idea is we're going to do a 21 point inspection on your systems, and we're going to
Okay.
figure this out in three different ways. We're going to look at we're going to get online with you. If it's after, if you're already a client, we can do a lot of this ourselves as part of onboarding. But if it's before you sign as a client, we're going to just sit down and interview you. We got a big long questionnaire we're going to walk through with you. Takes like 45 minutes to an hour, and we're going to look at things. We're going to ask you to share your screen and log into like your cloud backends and all the different tools you use. Really get the lay of the land. We're going to talk to some of your people if you have employees. We're going to talk to some of the folks who are in the trenches and see how they feel about their computers and whether they're working well
Yeah.
or not. And then we're going to install a piece of software on every computer or as many computers as you can deploy it to that doesn't give us any ability to remote access or anything like that, but just tells us, here's the model of the computer, here's how new it is, here's some things that might be going wrong with it that you might not see,
Hmm.
stuff like that. And then from there, we're going to put together this report. And you can see it's pretty easy to read, right? It's green is good, red is
Yes.
bad. These are things that we want to turn into green. And then yellow could go either way. Yellow could be
Okay.
bad, but maybe not bad enough to worry about it just yet. Or maybe it's just going to stay yellow forever because you just don't care and it's not worth putting any time or effort into. But
Hmm.
ultimately, our goal is to take this we'll deep dive on each one. We'll talk about your backups,
Yeah.
your wireless, etc. So this box kind of corresponds to this box.
Okay.
But the goal is to come down here and make it turn all green or as much green as
Ah.
possible. And so, how do we get from that first screen to that second screen? Well, that's all the stuff that we're going to do as part of a working relationship. It's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes it might take years, depending on how much red there
Mhm.
is and how much willingness there is to change. That's how we're going to deliver value over the course of the relationship, even when there's just not that much stuff. So, Katie, what you and I need to do, maybe not on this podcast because we don't want everybody knowing how all your systems work. What you and I need to do is sit down and have that call and start
Yes.
building this thing out. So, maybe on a future episode of this, maybe on the next episode of this, we'll we'll put together and just kind of see what your squares look like.
Yeah, and we can kind of walk through maybe if, even if we don't talk about the information that I need to give you in order for you to be able to make that square and be able to kind of assess everything, we can at least talk about what you're looking at whenever you are going through it and talking to me about it. Because
Yeah.
what I was also thinking would be interesting is so whenever you are doing any sort of like deal with a company in order to be taking on and be their like provider for tech and like security, my thought process was, oh man, like I don't know if I even as like a owner of my business would know all the answers to how my system fully operates. And so what I was thinking would be really interesting is going through and kind of having a discussion about the questions that you would be asking so that way some of our listeners who maybe are business owners and that's information that they need to know if they're going to work with a MSP sort of provider like yourself, MSP provider that's like saying like matcha tea or
No, no, yeah, the
something.
P is provider.
But
Yeah, no, I got you. I'm going to the
yeah,
ATM machine.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I'm tracking with you. No, that's actually a really good point. Maybe we'll do that. Is kind of walk through some of the questions together live on a future episode because and you know it's interesting. I'm working with one right now where they are getting ready to let go of their current IT guy, but they like
Mhm.
him. It's not a personal thing. They like him a lot. He's just not been effective, and
Okay.
that's why they're shopping around. So, but the problem is he holds all the keys. So when the owner and I were getting on a call and we were walking through this questionnaire, I'd ask her, "Okay, hey, do you have such and such?" She'd be like, "I don't know." Like, "Do you have an inventory?" Yeah, but he probably has it. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh yeah, so yeah, this guy has a lot of the keys to your business here. And I would have those keys too, but I'd also make them more readily available, you know, but she didn't want to tip her hand that, hey, we're getting ready to let you go, so I need to see like the inventory because I want to share it with this guy here who's about
yeah.
to take your job. Yeah, that's a problem. But we work around that.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out. And some stuff I'm just going to figure out once we get into it. But it was surprising. I'm still able to figure out a lot of it without seeing that stuff, just by looking at like their server room or by having them walk through some things on their computer. You know, it's still it's not complete, but it's enough of a picture that I can at least generate a decent quote and put together a plan that might become a living document. I might need to change a yellow to a red once I get into it and look at it. Or maybe it's better.
Yeah,
Sometimes
because
we turn a red to a green because it's like, oh, you're better than I thought you were on this. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's all interesting because I'm sure, like I said, there's probably so many things that are going on system wise and with technology that a lot of business owners, especially if they're like a decision maker of like a company with a couple of employees, that they probably just don't fully know. And it's not any slack to anyone that doesn't. It's just when you're managing a company, especially in particular industries, it's hard to be able to sit down and be like, this is what we have, this is what we don't have, this is how this runs. Like, there's just no
right,
reason why someone might need to
right.
until it's too late.
Until it's too late, you need that documentation.
If an owner were to come to you and have any questions, are there instances where someone comes to you because they don't know any sort of like information and you're like, wow, that was a really dumb question. Why would you ask that when you could Google it? Or do you just always accept any sort of question?
I think this is a segue into no dumb questions. No, there are no dumb
It is.
questions. The only dumb question is one that is not asked. Yeah, great one. I actually have a question teed up, and this is kind of timely. We recently got a question about email, and like
Mm.
seems like a lot more email is going into spam folders as of late, and they were kind of asking me what happened there. So the answer is it's actually not even the answer yet. Around the question has to do with this guy, and it's the fact that Google and Yahoo put out some new standards this
Oh,
year about emails coming into Gmail and Yahoo accounts. And the gist of it
okay.
is that you have to have these specific authentication protocols, these three guys, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. And the question was that it was like, hey, I read this thing. There's a lot more spam. What are Google and Yahoo really asking me for? What the heck is this stuff? Well, what are
Hmm.
SPF, DKIM, and DMARC? And they
Yeah.
apply to really just about anybody. In fact, if you don't have these things, even without Google and Yahoo really tightening the standards, you can see it damages your reputation. You have a greater chance for your email, even if you're not a spammer, you're not talking about little blue pills, you're not trying to scam somebody, pretend to be somebody else, you're not in violation of any laws at all,
Yeah.
but you just don't have these things. They're going to either bounce your email or throw you in the spam folder. So let me talk about all three of them real quick, and I'll try to put it in as simple terms as possible because this is no dumb questions. So all three of these are records in your DNS, the same DNS that you use for your website. When you start a website, you got to have a whatever.com domain, right? So you
Yes.
get that whatever.com domain, you get it set up, and you get it pointing to your website. Well, in addition to pointing to your website, that's where you add these three things. You already have one in there that
Okay.
says, hey, when I receive an email for whatever.com, send the email to here. And that's called an MX record. Basically, it's like my website's over here, but my email is on Microsoft 365 or my email is on Google Workspace. You set
Hmm.
up a record in your DNS that says email for whatever.com goes to Google Workspace. So now you're going to add some more. And what an SPF record says is when you receive an email from me at whatever.com, it's going to come from these sources and only these sources. So
Okay.
when you send an email, it's going to come from Google because that's where my email lives. So your SPF record is saying it comes from Google. But maybe you also use like MailChimp or HubSpot or something like that. You put that in the SPF record. An email coming from me at whatever.com is going to come from MailChimp. And
Okay. I got you. So it's not like whenever you say email coming to me, it's or like coming from me, it's like you're listing out all the different avenues that you use to send an
to
email.
send
So that would
mail.
be like your CRMs as well.
Right, exactly, exactly. And so if you get an email from me at Brian at bestmax.com or anybody at bestmax.com and it comes from some random server in Southeast Asia, that's not
Hmm.
going to be in my SPF record. So that's not a legit email. All
Okay.
right. So now take that same concept a step further. All right. So Brian, your SPF record says your emails come from Microsoft 365. Well, I got an email here that looks like it came from Microsoft servers. How do I know that's legit? How do I know there's really Microsoft servers? That's where
Yeah.
DKIM comes into play. So DKIM records are basically saying you can identify Microsoft servers that are sending my email by this little code.
Okay.
And so these servers are going to have a code that's going to match this code that I put into my DNS records. If those codes don't match, it's not legit.
Okay. And all these DNS records are going to be on their website whenever they're setting all
Yeah,
this up
on
on your
exactly.
website.
Not really on your website, but it's going to be in a DNS service. So you'll set that up typically about the same time you're setting up your website. Okay.
Okay.
So if you
So,
think of like you think of registrars where you go buy domain names like Namecheap, GoDaddy, Network Solutions, there's a whole bunch of them. You're going up there. Typically, you're probably getting DNS service from those same folks. Not always. You could put it somewhere else,
okay.
but usually it's going to be there. So like you go to Namecheap and you buy a domain, they're probably going to be like, okay, where's the website for this domain? And you tell it. And where's the email for this domain? And you tell it. That's where what's the SPF record for this domain? What's the DKIM for this domain? You're putting them in that same
Okay.
place. But
Okay.
when an email server receives an email from you, it does a check. Does this domain have an SPF record? Yes. Is this server in that SPF record? Yes. Okay. Is this server that's sending me this email legitimately the same one that's in the SPF record? Well, here's a DKIM record that has a code. Does that code match? Yep, it matches the code. Okay, it passed a DKIM check. It's legit. And then finally, DMARC is basically reporting for all that. And it's basically saying,
Okay.
hey, if you get an email from me that doesn't match SPF or doesn't match DKIM, here's what you should do with it.
Okay. So
And
giving a way for people to keep themselves safe if it does get by.
it's giving them advice. And generally speaking, what Google and Yahoo are looking for is they're looking for the DMARC to say is if SPF doesn't match and DKIM doesn't match, reject it or quarantine it.
Okay.
If you have it set to anything other than that, other than quarantine and reject, it's considered loosey goosey. It's not, or if you just don't have a DMARC record, it's considered like, okay, well, this isn't really authenticated yet.
Oh man, I did not know there was that much that went into just sending.
All this because some jerks, had to send emails about little blue pills to everybody and their brother, 20 years
Yes.
ago. Yeah, and because it's a problem. Email attacks are a big deal. Business email compromise is a massive problem. Jackson County's ransomware that we talked about earlier may very well have come from an email.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know like I don't send nearly anywhere close to 5,000 emails a day. So what about because like but I know that one of my emails here recently went into someone's spam box. So what about if you maybe don't send those $5,000 5,000? What if you don't send those 5,000 emails a day, but you still are finding your emails going into spam? Do you still
yeah.
should you still go update all those records?
I would. I think at this point it's becoming table stakes. I think that's what Google and Yahoo's announcement is basically saying. Is like, look, if you're
Okay.
sending legitimate transactional emails and you want to make sure they land in people's inboxes, you got to have these things set up. And it's not a really
Okay.
hard setup. Once you've done it and you kind of know what you're doing, it's not an overly difficult setup, but it does require knowing everything that's sending email is you, getting those codes from all those different servers, getting them into your DNS records. So me saying it's not hard is kind of like, well, yeah, look, fixing computers ain't hard. It's stupid easy to fix a
Yeah.
computer. To everybody else, like, okay, Brian, sure, yeah, not hard.
Well, like I feel pretty cool anytime I'm explaining to someone and like helping someone update their DNS records. I'm like, okay, yeah, we're going into the back end of your website. We're doing this. We're getting it connected to your email. It's all going to flow great into your CRM. It's going to be beautiful. And then you're sitting here talking about these new addition to DNS records, and I was like, oh, actually, I don't know anything.
That's all right. You drive your car every day. You don't need to know how to fix the car's engine. You just need to know how to drive
Yeah.
it. And this is really kind of behind the scenes stuff, but it's becoming more. It's bubbling up to the surface because of the fact that lots of people start asking, why does so much of my email landing in people's spam boxes these days? And this might be the answer. So there you go. No dumb
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer because I was just thinking about that earlier this week. Like, why is my email going into your spam? And the worst part is when you don't have any other way to contact that person because you don't have their phone number, you can't email and be like, hey, can
Nope.
you check your spam?
Nope.
Nope,
Nothing you can do about
just
it.
lost.
This is just, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why they already
I,
hired someone else.
yeah, exactly. I've already gotten to the point now when I'm sending proposals, I'm calling like the next day and I'm like, hey, did you receive it? Unless they email me back and
Hey,
say, hey, I got
friend.
it. Yeah, because I've lost deals to, well, yeah, we emailed you and we never heard back. Or we were waiting for an email from you and we never saw it. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
I
So
know. I
yeah.
I just fully convinced myself. I was like, they don't want to talk to me after seeing numbers. It's fine.
That might be true too, but like, that's the gap I've started filling in is the stupid email just didn't work. Sitting there in their
Yeah, right.
spam folder. They didn't see it. They love me. They love the deal. They're totally going to do it if they read the email.
Yeah, right. If it were in their inbox, they would have said yes.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, that's something we can help you implement. We do it
Yeah.
for our clients all the time.
And I am sure that they are very appreciative because, yeah, that's when you're making deals, that is a game changer.
For sure. Now, it doesn't make you completely exempt. Like if you are doing cold marketing, these are table stakes. It doesn't mean you're going to land in the inbox every time. There's the algorithms are still looking for other things, but like this is a definite. If you don't have this, yeah, you're getting in the spam folder.
Especially if there's other practices like, links and images and those other things that emails
Yep.
already have a hard time wanting to work with. But
Yep.
if you have any dumb questions, you can always email them to us so that way we can help you out. Brian obviously is the tech wizard, and so he is accessible at, would you like to share your email again? I
Yeah,
think we had
I
it.
think we set up Brian at bestbetalking.com.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Hit me at Brian at bestbetalking.com or email Katie at bestbetalking.com if you want to know what bees bathe their kids with. I don't I can't get over bees feeding their kids the same thing they use to seal off their hives.
I I also had because I was out with the hives, I took a picture of like a baby bee that wasn't fully developed, and those are
Really?
wild looking. So I will email people the picture of the baby bee.
I want to see the baby bee. Aw.
You say that it looks like something that popped out of someone's chest in an 80s alien movie. It's not pretty.
It's larva. It's disgusting larva.
Yes. But with
Too
that
funny.
being said, it sounds like Brian's gonna go update some DNS records and I'm gonna go feed some bees.
There we go. Hey, well, thank you all for joining us for this episode of Best Be Talking. We'll be talking again next week. Look forward to seeing you.
Bye.
Bye now.